Welcome to another live episode of VPR Radio. We may be a little tardy for the party, but the party doesn't start till we get here. So, hey.
How's everybody doing? VPR, you see me with my shades on. It's not an Advil night, but it was a real night. It was a real weekend. I'm glad to be back with you guys on the live. It has been so eventful the last weekend. This week alone, I had a wonderful night last night, and but I'm here now. I'm here with y'all. I'm gonna let the room fill in. Y'all can probably see in my eyes that y'all can't see in my eyes, but we're gonna address that a little bit later, okay? So shout out to everybody tuning in and subscribing to the VPR Radio. We have been running up the numbers, of course, on YouTube, and that is all thanks to you. The time that you guys take out and interact with us on any platform is always appreciated. So thank you. Today we do have JD Mass and Kory May of the Same Difference podcast back in the studio. So I'm excited to have them back so we could go over their journey on the beginning of their podcast and seeing where it's leading them now. And I think that's something that we should discuss up here.
Yeah, definitely.
But Kiana, just to jump on a hip hop tip, there's not a lot of news going on this week, but there is one thing that struck me. This Nicki Minaj and Meg Thee Stallion debacle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go too far, but just debacle. And just how far they're going back and forth online, leaking their parents' grave sites. It's pretty messy out there right now.
Oh, I didn't even know it got that easy. You know how I don't get like I get enough information rolling one time on a feed, and I'm like, okay, that's enough. It's an overload.
Normally, I try to vibrate above it, but I do have a lot of people approaching me saying, "Are you going to discuss this on VPR?" And I'm just like, let me at least do my research. But from what I'm seeing, Meg Thee Stallion releases a song and Nicki Minaj just goes full tilt and tries to, I guess, release another record. She's speaking about her mother. She's speaking about her being shot. It's a messy situation, but yeah. So the Barbs leaked out Meg Thee Stallion's, I think, mother's or father's gravesite.
Is that when she responded with the whole Megan's Law?
Yeah, and then I think Cardi B's fans leaked Nicki Minaj's father's gravesite. So that's crazy. It's crazy with fandom and how far it's willing to drive certain people to disrespect certain lines. What's going on, Meta Copyright? Shout out to you. It is early in the morning. Wrong and off limits is right. Off limits is right. When the music starts to affect real life and you start to talk about people who's passed away, parents. We see this in drill all the time. You know what I mean?
I got to come to your door type material. And definitely big shout out to Meta. That's actually Red Vegas's dad. He's real dope. We appreciate you always for the support.
Yes, we really do. And, so when the music gets to that point and you got your fandom just carrying the conversation in a negative way and it's affecting your brand, I don't know, man. Right now, Nicki's looking a little bit off hinge. I have a video here where she was talking to Joe Budden on what's that app? Not OnlyFans. What's the app, Kiana, with the phone where you only could
or Clubhouse?
We use it, Clubhouse. There we go.
Okay, yeah.
So before you have our guest join us, I see Kory in the studio. We're having JD Mass.
Yeah, I actually want to get Kory's opinion. Oh, JD just pulled up. We could get both of their opinions on this whole hip hop. Yeah. We dive into everything. And for you guys, if you have not checked out Same Difference podcast, may I highly urge you to go and do so today. It is so great listening to an honest, transparent, open conversation between two people that are genuinely just getting to know each other. They're both funny. They're both great storytellers and so eloquent, right? You will be cracking up. I mean, the stories, y'all, go check it out. We'll get into that. Kory, JD, my guys.
How are you guys?
What's going on, fellas?
Hey, thank you so much for the opportunity. You guys do so much for us all the time.
Well, we appreciate you. And we appreciate the fact that JD didn't pull up with that bad mic today that was providing all the feedback the last time. So
got a whole new computer. So
look at you, all grown up.
We're moving on up in life here at VPR and the Same Difference podcast.
Yes,
But I'm
indeed.
glad to see you guys back. It's the first time this year. How did you guys bring in your 2024, guys?
Hustling and grinding.
At my age, uneventful is good.
You see, we got two different answers: hustling and grinding. And we got Kory May. Okay, I brought in my New Year's on a party tip. It's of course, getting paid and making money,
right?
But definitely battling all sicknesses. JD, speaking about that, thank you for reaching out to me. I was down and out VPR for the last few weeks, and JD was messaging just to make sure I was fine, and I really do appreciate that, man. It means a lot.
Yes, health is an important part that we skip because we've been taught so much unhealthy behaviors here in this country. So we gotta.
And JD's just a very genuine person, right? Like he's always gonna call and check in on you and make sure you're all right. I was about to say, Kory, get your ass back on this.
Speaking about genuine, before you guys came up on the show, we were just quickly going over the way Nicki Minaj and Meg Thee Stallion have been speaking about one another. If you guys haven't paid attention right now, there will be called a beef of sorts. Meg Thee Stallion released a song. Nicki released a song speaking about her dead mother, her being shot in the foot, her practically victim shaming in a sense, saying that it didn't happen. And now people online are carrying this conversation of, oh, Meg's lying and she has not been shot and Tory should be freed. So these are the things that are happening. I have a quick Clubhouse insert that I want to play here where she was speaking to Joe Budden, I believe, last night. That I just want to play shortly, and then we can just discuss it before we start up our show. Guys, thank you for tuning in. I see everybody in the live right now. Let's get up this video.
Get shot in one, and then you get shot in two. Yeah, that leaves zero. Okay, so how you working 2 days? How you working 2 days later? If you got, do you know what? Have you ever been shot? Have you?
I've never been shot, Nikki.
Okay. I know people that have been shot. I know people like that shoot. Okay. Now let me tell you what the fuck don't. Let me tell you what the fuck don't happen 2 days after a bitch get shot in 2 hoofs. Twerking on socials. First of all, emotionally, you just got shot. Girl, no. But, however, the point is, you know what really grinded my fucking gears, guys? What grinded my gears was when Doodoo on the Beats, they or them I've never met in my life, right? Got on Twitter, started bragging about him not clearing a beat for Nicki Minaj.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Kory, JD, we have you here, and I know you just heard the clip. I want to hear your outlook upon the situation. I know we normally don't dive too much into people's personal lives, but from what you heard on that conversation, that call with Joe Budden and his Clubhouse and Nicki Minaj, what do you take from it, JD and Kory?
JD, you're muted, just so you know.
Age before beauty on this one, Kory. Go for it.
Oh, wow.
Terrible.
All right, young buck. Here's how it goes. The rap and hip hop history was that you did diss tracks. I mean, I go back on that to like Kool Mo D and LL Cool J, and there were certain lines that weren't crossed, but I also think it's indicative of how you drive sales and marketing, right? Create a diss track that people are buying to hear both sides. So let's look further behind the veil and ask who benefits money-wise from all of this stuff. Now that's capitalistic right there. At a time when we are often talking about lifting up our Black queens, I got to ask myself, is this real? Or is this, again, a marketing tactic? But diss tracks and beefs within rap and hip hop aren't anything new. I'm just wondering how much people are selling their souls in order to make this happen.
Okay.
I agree with Kory on that. Like that's my thought process. And you know, we always talk about that because there's always some beef. Like look at Meek and Drake for a while, right? And now look. I mean,
Burger King, I'm telling you, Burger King.
Remy and Nicki, right? We had that little spurt. But I think the crazy thing, Nicki sounded interesting.
Bothered.
I don't know. Nicki's been exhibiting some interesting behaviors. That's all I'm gonna say.
To say the least, yeah.
And when she was initially speaking on Clubhouse, I didn't even realize that was her. It sounded like an entirely different.
She speaks with this
person.
Ambiguity. I can't. It's a weird way, but she goes into character when she, you know, what I mean, aren't doing me all. But
this is also true, right? There's a lot of characters here in hip hop. Yeah, Meta said bitter sounding, right? Like
it is.
To that.
Nikki's you know, I'm not age shaming or anything like that, but there's a lot of younger acts that she's spoken negatively upon, and where was this energy for? And like people like Cardi B that was applying the same energy back, you know. So that's when you ask for that things like that.
I find it especially to be weird when people become parents and then exhibit this type of behavior, right? Like, shouldn't you have done that all prior to now being in charge of essentially setting the tone for how a person should act, right? What's appropriate, what's not appropriate, et cetera, et cetera. Because if you fast forward 20 years and somebody was talking about her child like that, I don't think it would be the same type of vibration. You know,
well, we haven't heard from JD, so let's see if we can get him up off that Similac on his breath.
Yeah, I mean, first thoughts is sad that this is kind of the state of what's popular and the like you said, Kory, the way that we're trained to get media. I mean, it goes down that whole rabbit hole of what's acceptable in hip hop has not been acceptable in other forms and genres of music. And why then is it acceptable in hip hop? Because of course, this is what folks that look like this, you know, want they want to portray this picture of that low bottom kind of behavior. I was listening to Willie D and Tretch talk in an interview Willie D did on his podcast with Tretch, and he said, you know, the media portrays the worst of Black folks and the best of white folks, right?
Right,
and so this is kind of that example of how did this even become popular? It should have stayed in the clubhouse even at its first. It shouldn't have even come to all of this because that's a level of line crossing. But how does that get displayed as popular? How does certain things get, you know, just allowed in hip hop? Black murder is just, it's allowed. Let's talk about it. You can't do that and get away with that and it be promoted in white genres of music because we're not going to portray that image of us. We got this clean image, even though we're the violent ones historically. So it's like this whole, it's bothersome to me and to my heart to just hear all of that.
Let's amplify that point again. So it's the dehumanization and devaluation of Black culture to a low common denominator, and that elevation of that low common denominator as this is Black culture when there is so much more that is invisible or unseen
or unpromoted. So
you can easily demonize that picture of Black culture, that snapshot of this lowest common denomination of Black culture, and now everybody has the idea that Black culture is violent and rap oriented, when that's a very small segment of what Black culture is.
And when Donald Trump does it to Ted Cruz and the rest of them, it's celebrated. Look at how funny it was, this, that, and the other. Like, and watch how weak these people are. So that it's just a kind of shit show to me. I mean,
and Kory, I'm sorry. Go ahead, FMI.
No. It's funny that you bring up the Donald Trump point, because one of the rappers that tied himself to him on his campaign run has now come back out the woodworks to try to tie himself to him again, which is Little Pump, and he's back on stage at his MAGA rallies trying to say vote for Trump with a tattoo of Trump on his neck. And I just seen this video just pop up just now, and I'm like, it's funny that you said that, JD. I'm like, look at this. It's like the things that we don't allow children to do, we allow Donald Trump to do on a major stage while being a president. And that's my issue, but I'm gonna let Kiana continue.
No, I wanted to say to Kory, it's so true, because the portrayal through media, right, of how Black people are, Black men, Black women, people that don't know better, particularly white people and even some Black people, right, will define that as the race itself. And I'm sure you've experienced an FMI as well, Kory, where you've been in situations where you get the, oh, wow, you speak so well.
All the time.
All the time, right? Where are you from? People used to ask me if I was from Connecticut or Westchester. I'm like, nope, I'm from the projects on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. So the bomb would be like, what? But you speak so well, but you this and that, but you're intelligent, but right. So
we tried to oppress you so much, and you still are able to speak this way.
Where is the butt? Right? Where does the butt come from?
Oh yeah, I get it all the time. Well, you're clearly quite educated. Where are you from?
Oh yes, that's a famous one.
No, really, where are you from? I'm telling you exactly
where I'm from. Of Iowa. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's 100%. I have gotten it a lot over the years, and I tend to overlook it, because it's just like, all right, if you're gonna look at me with this glasses that I am only this DJ or this mindset, or he's only hip hop, he's only into this. Then when I listen to different music, it's all, you know this. I'm just like, haven't we went through enough years that people listen to the music that they gravitate to? It doesn't have to be all hip hop 24/7.
That's another great one.
Here's another one, and I'm sure FMI and Kiana have heard this one, and I'm sure JD has seen this because he's adjacent. It's, well, you're one of the good ones. And
oh yeah,
stop.
Oh yeah.
That just because you think I'm one of the good ones doesn't mean you get to talk about people who look like me in a negative way around people who look like you.
That's right. And I've heard even a whole other level. Okay. And this has come from people of Latino and Latina origin, when they're surprised that I'm not of their culture or race. And they say, well, you're too pretty to be Black. Right. And it immediately becomes, what do you get? Like, that makes me go all the way off. Like we were talking about, when you take a Libra to the edge, right? You give a mouse a cookie.
And that's the level of anti-Black racism that truly is not understood by white culture, right? We don't even, I remember we were trying to explain colorism in my doctorate program, and like the cohort was about 20, and this young, darker skinned Black woman was explaining, how society makes her feel. And the white woman's response was, oh, but I think you're pretty. And I was like, oh, you just think you solved that? You're not even listening to the fact that this is an actual cultural thing. We weren't asking for your contribution there in that moment. Take some time to understand what's going on, that there are people in countries that grandmothers are hoping their grandchildren are born lighter skinned, just for safety reasons, for pretty reasons, for being able to move through society, all of these different things.
And by countries, we can still speak on the United States, because that's a very old term way of thinking, right? A lot of that brown paper bag test, right? Like that's still very real. And we do even see it within other cultures where they'd be like, oh, that's a negra, right? Like depicting them as they're darker, they're bad, and I'm just like, where is this mindset? How do you continue to live that on so that now you're actually just destroying one another?
Right.
Like, I'm better than you because I'm lighter. You're this type of person because you're darker. It's just like, where does the sense in that even come from?
Well, my question to everybody here at VPR, especially people in the live right now, guys, I want you to throw up your comments in the section. What do you think we can do to solve some of this colorism that we face around the world? I'm not even gonna say America because just around the world. What are some of the solutions that we can maybe throw out there, spitball? Throw them in the comment section below. I appreciate you guys for tuning in right now. Of course, JD and Kory and Kiana, if you have any answers to that, I'll of course take them too.
Well, I would love to chime in on that. And I think it's really all about education, right? Like, I don't just let these type of comments, and I never have, just go off. Like, I remember Skyla, who's my darkest daughter, and all of my children are a different complexion, which is beautiful. One lady told me when she was a baby, don't worry, she'll get lighter. I went off on her, right? Like, I had to completely go off on this woman, and in an intelligent way, because I taught her some things. So when you're educating, right, and not just like losing your emotion and going left, but educating someone, because this ingrained way of thinking has been carried forward. And a lot of times people don't understand the trauma that they're even bringing to children when they give them this type of information and make them feel like they're less than or better than because they look one way. Right now, you're starting an internal within your home. You're starting an internal conflict that extends out into wherever these children go. Right. And they're already going to get that from other people. So you have to educate. Like, sometimes you cannot let things slide, and you have to let people know that's a wrong way to think. And let me give you some facts.
Right. The colorism and the amount of melanin that's in our skin allows us, like JD was saying, it's the perception of proximity to power, right? The closer you are to being able to pass means that you might be able to sneak in and have access to power. And the power being that of access to a white power structure. And the further that you are from that, well, all of the negative traits of everybody get dumped on you, right? So if you're dark, you're considered stupid or slow or far less intelligent, more beast-like. Whereas the lighter skinned you are, hey, you've got good hair, which means that one of the identifiers of your racial background might be that, hey, you've got that good hair, you can pass. And I think we have to pride ourselves again on just the pride of our achievement, right? If you're dark skinned and you achieve something, be proud of it, because that's telling everyone that this is an achievement. It wasn't a dark skin, or it wasn't an achievement despite the fact that you were dark skinned. It was an achievement and you were dark skinned.
I think we really got to learn melanin again. I mean, like, they teach it briefly and then let it go, right? Like, for instance, even they teach about the soil briefly and then let it go. But this is part of life. So if I'm lacking melanin, then that sounds very different than if I'm white. If I'm having less something that allows me to be out there in that sun, and that's a earth we're not even connected to anymore, then that's hard for me to stand on superiority when I can't even be outside with you at the barbecue, right?
Right. At least you're invited to the barbecue, though, JD. So that's a good one.
And I appreciate being invited to the barbecue because I know how to sit down and enjoy the meal and be in my place too. But it's if we don't understand the science behind it, and we're not really teaching the ability to be connected to the planet and to life and love and all of these different things with our blackness, like literally I've had white folks say, well, why can't I say white power if they can say black power? Okay, tell me, what does white power mean? Because it's meant destruction and violence and this. What does black power mean? It's meant justice and love and peace. Those are two different terms. Go say white power, but mean love, peace, and everything else, and dismantle that. Because if you can't speak on it in that way, then you have to, like, we have to, like, have some real depth of an honest conversation. And the powers to be are trying to cut off that conversation more and more and more.
JD, let's take that a little bit further. Let's extend on that, right? So that is a recognition that white power is one thing. And I've had the conversation that when you say black power, well, and they're trying to make it an equivalency, and it is a false equivalency.
Exactly.
Like all lives matter.
Yeah.
Well, here's one that I've heard several times. The KKK is a hate group and the Black Panthers are a hate group. So they're the same thing. And I was like, stop.
Oh, yeah.
Stop it right away.
Stop right here, right now. I can list off names of Black people who were murdered by that organization. Can you name a single white person who was harmed by the Black Panther Party? Exactly. Well, no, you cannot.
Exactly.
That's right.
And tell me the feeling that you have behind an association with the Black Party. Well, that they're going to do things that white people did to them. And I said, that's not in any of the bylaws, the credos, any meaning of the Black Panther Party. Educate yourself. Well, I didn't know. And I said, you can't make an equivalent comment like that if you're not educated.
That's right. You're just projecting, right? And that's what you would expect, right? Yep. You would expect that Black people have created this group that causes destruction and harm and fear. And so therefore, if they're creating a coalition, a group, they have to be doing the same thing, not protecting themselves, right? Or protecting their families and communities against this type of hate that we're giving out. No, of course.
And Kiana, and the scary part is, everyone now is such like in their echo chambers, so they'll go into their parts of the internet and they'll hear the rhetoric that they want to hear, and they'll get louder amongst themselves, whether it be correct or right. You know what I'm saying? With TikTok, with social media, you'll find an influencer that's going to echo your beliefs, whether it be wrong or right, and they're going to continue on with this. And that's why these conversations here is why we want to have them. Go ahead.
Exactly. And often these beliefs are unfounded, right?
Yeah.
Science and facts behind
manipulated.
Just to respond to meta copyright. Plus, they don't know the history of Black people. And you brought up
without
Whoopi
a doubt,
and Wesley comes to mind in Hollywood. Yeah. Look how many people have been casted out. Think about 3LW. How many female groups they put the Black girl to the back. Yeah. Bring the Spanish girl. You know, they'll bring out everybody else. You know, Danny the Kane. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Remember when that was a thing with Diddy? Absolutely. You know what I mean? He put Dawn and them to the back when they were the more powerful singers.
That's right.
But yeah, so it's been done all throughout history.
All throughout history. And we're seeing it continuously. But I completely agree. Having that research, right? Like, and when you're on the internet and you're scrolling and you're seeing conversations, educate yourself, right? The same way that you can scroll and see things and say, oh, that must be true. Why don't you do some fact checking, right?
Yes.
That's where it all begins.
Check this out. I'm going to Florida this weekend to speak to a college class, and Florida of all places, right? This young professor really liked what I had to say in a conversation about my 7 steps, but some time has lapsed. And I asked him initially, hey, are you sure this is okay with your governor? You know, and by the way, please, if I do get locked up, don't bail me out till you get the media there first. I need some book sales, but that's the difference.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure we on it.
Get my PR team on it first, but before we do the bailout thing, I've been in jail before for a few days. I can survive.
Okay.
That being said, when I went over the content with him recently, he was saying, hey, can we talk less about what's happened and just about the solution? Because I really love your solution. I'm like, yeah, but you're in a medical school. you can't possibly find the right solution for a patient until you diagnose the properly. Because if you misdiagnose, you're going to keep repeating the wrong things.
Yes.
Right. Fast forward yesterday, spoke to a woman who's high up in the DEI program at St. Louis University, a private institution here in St. Louis. And she said that they are taking across the board in states, in schools. Education used to be the place where you could have these types of dialogues and at least have different types of dialogues. They are taking the ability to have this conversation out of the schools as much as possible. In the state Missouri schools, all of these different places. How do we get there? So what I see that is, given that race is a competition and we've always been competing and everything, when that George Floyd murder happened and there were people really standing up and protesting and really kind of pushing for change and more speaking on it, of course the powers to be are going to try and shut that down further and further. And as we've been discussing, every time they can try to keep us from learning the truth about our history, they keep their power structure growing and growing and growing.
Right.
And that is where we're facing. And we just have to break through this push because, we go Democrat, then we go Republican, then we go Democrat, Republican. The swaying has always been there. So this swaying should have been expected. We go from having a black president to having one that, tried to call him out and make him and belittle him. Like, this whole thing. So I think it's important that we keep the conversation going, figure out ways, new platforms, whatever it is, that we make sure we keep pushing this through in a way that demonstrates some level of healing has to be the goal of all of this.
Amen.
And I love how, when you were speaking to the professor or the person you're going to work with in Florida, they tried to shy away from the initial issue and just get to the solution. And you had to remind them that is masterful, JD. And with that, it really warms my heart. I want to make sure I say shout out to and happy birthday to Augustine. I don't want to pronounce your name now. Facudo. I know you always tune into us. Happy birthday. Thank you for tuning in.
Yes.
From Argentina.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys. And Meta Copyright is saying we are the reason we're messing up their program, and having this conversation here is messing up the programming.
That's a fact.
And yes, Meta, I'm glad that you're tuned in right now, and I'm glad that you pop up to VPR. So I appreciate that. We have another comment
of that programming.
Yeah, we have another comment by Augustine. To growing one platform in the world, people see it. Thank you to everybody writing right now. We really appreciate it because it's been a dope morning. But JD, I'm going to let you continue. Kory, Kiana.
I did just want to say also, again, if you guys are not watching, not paying attention, right? Like the education, we're in the world of technology. So there's so many different ways that you can grab information. And these two gentlemen conversing with each other, you will learn so much. Like as you described the Iowa caucus, we've all heard caucus, right? I'm from New York City. I've never been in a damn caucus. I don't know what happens at a caucus or what's involved, but I do know it's essential to who's going to be president, the candidacy, et cetera, right? And that's why so many people rally about it. But as he explained how in these small towns and states, if you have the money and the power, you can have these candidates coming to your house, right? You can tip the scales for someone just based on your power, who you know, the amount of money that you have. And these are in places that we don't usually think about, right? As being like the epicenter of the United States and things that keep it moving and shaking. So I got some education just listening to that. And you learn so much when you can look at the different perspectives, because we all have our own personal experience. Many of us have experiences that are parallel, right? But when you listen to the experience on both sides, you can really delve in and say, you're going to learn so much. I mean, how much do you learn when they come and sit with us?
We get another view of it. I love when we have you guys here. After normally we finish up our interviews, I have so many people contact me and they say, wow, you guys had JD back again. He opens my eyes to so much. I have therapists that I know that contact me and are excited for you when you get on, just to hop on. They're playing you in your doctor's office. And I'm telling you, they're calling me and telling me they look forward to these episodes. So I always appreciate having you guys here and what you guys have been doing with the podcast. So let's speak about that. So what episode are you guys on now? How's it going? I know you guys have made some new fans, followers. Let's talk about that.
Episode 13 just dropped on Tuesday. And 13, we dissected the Martin Luther King Day holiday. And
give us a little sneak peek.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that head nod at JD's.
Well, we talk about how it's much like what JD was talking about going to Florida. I don't want you to diagnose the problem. Let me get the solution, and let me get to the solution really quickly. I call it the McNuggetization of the I have a dream speech. So it's intellectual finger food with dipping sauce, but you don't get all the nutrition that is in the I have a dream speech, right? The easiest soundbite, and people think in sound bites because how we have learned to think is in sound bites and bumper stickers. So the easiest thing that we get is color of the skin versus content of the character. And what that allows us to do is ignore the entire rest of the speech.
All right.
And it does not dismantle or address the conditions that are dressed in here. It means, hey, I have a dream for this to happen, that we have this society that judges people on the content of their character over the color of the speech. Let's look at that. I believe in that dream, but that doesn't say that I'm going to put in the work to make that dream a reality. I believe in a dream. I am not actively working toward a reality. And that's the thing that drives me nuts. People grab that little McNugget, dip it in their favorite sauce, taste it, and say, I believe in Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King.
I don't even see color.
You see color in that dipping sauce.
I gotta quote my favorite old white man, George Carlin, and say they call it the American dream because you got to be asleep to believe it.
Amen. That one.
So JD and I also discussed talking about a letter from Birmingham jail, and that should be what we read more so on MLK Day than the I Have a Dream speech. There's so many speeches that Dr. King gave. We could use any of those, and it will flesh out more of what he was seeing, feeling, and hearing. And you're right, Meta. It is a lack of comprehension, but it's a willful lack of comprehension. This isn't a lack of skill. This is willful. Mm-hmm. It's deliberate and intentional that, hey, I can say the worst thing, JD alluded to this in a previous podcast. What's the worst thing that you can call somebody? An N-word lover. But at the same time,
what's the worst thing you can call a white person that really will hurt them is that you can call me a cracker all day. There's no systemic power behind that. You can call me a hunky. You can call me any of that. There's no systemic, you might hold my order up or whatever and discriminate against me that way, but you've caused an inconvenience, no true power. And we were having this conversation with a white kid at Ohio State, my first freshman year in college. And and the kid was like, but you can call me all these things. It doesn't matter. What could you call that? Why does the N-word hurt so much to you? And finally, one of the black friends of mine was like, hey, so what if I called you an N-word lover? And of course, he used the N-word and he said, dang, yeah, that would hurt. And,
not the damn.
And that is how powerful the difference in power dynamics is, that the only way I can cost you something hurtful is by using the most hurtful term for these people in what I identify you as.
And saying that you love them.
That's
Yes.
cold.
Yes.
Using love against someone. The fact that you love them takes away from you.
Yes.
Yes.
Think about that, VPR. The fact that we love you. That's wild. That is wild.
That's why.
And in terms of adjacency, see how fast people run away from the term racist.
Right.
People
Like
run.
Kory, one of the things I was thinking of after our last conversation on Dr. Martin Luther King is, the funny thing is, these folks that are quoting Martin Luther King now are so much against Black Lives Matter for their protests. And yet that's what Martin Luther King did as his level of effectiveness in the, like, that was what his main vehicle for change was for a long time, was protesting. So how this whole disconnect in this, manipulated state we're in.
I love when white people will say, well, you guys don't have to be down and out financially, right? Like, why don't you create your own? And then I have to tell them about the histories of the Black Wall Street.
Of creating our own and that being dismantled.
Plural, that have been not just dismantled, but destroyed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Ripped apart, burned down. Oh, I didn't know.
And time again, VPR?
Of course you didn't.
And beyond even ripped apart and burned down, which is absolutely true, and direct violence, the manipulation of drugs, guns, liquor stores, all these different components, taking away resources and making you want to even consider something to take you away from this sort of life as is and get you hooked on something that can continue to debilitate you.
That's right.
Is a level of manipulation and violence at a whole different psychological warfare.
That's right. That was the government's way of saying, I bet you won't try that again.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me get you back in line there.
Right.
Well, around Reverend Dr. MLK Day, we had white politicians, especially on the right side of the aisle, who would say, well, if Dr. King was alive today, he'd be right-wing or Republican, believing in this, this, and this. And that's not, it's intended to pander to their base and say that it's okay for you to be exactly how you are because this American icon would agree with you. And they don't care that Black people are incensed. Black people who knew Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King are incensed. His family is saying, no, you don't know us and you don't know our father's legacy. But the white politicians who usurp that are all of the mindset that we know more, we know better, we're speaking to our audience, and you Black people can be dismissed and devalued because, well, we don't value you.
Some hard truths, VPR. You see, when you tune in Thursdays, and shout out to our people in our comment section. They're sticking with us and joining the conversation. I think that is beautiful. This is where the change starts. But when you tune in on Thursdays, you get some of these hard truths. And every time you tune into Race for What seem different, you will get different outlooks on those same truths, and they may just grow into something even more. So, guys, make sure you tell everybody where they can find you, your socials, your websites, because I know they're gonna want to watch you.
And
I'll start off. You can get a hold of us at samedifference.life. That's on the web. JD.
Same Difference broadcast at gmail.com. And I just want to say that our first, like Kory normally points this out, we are getting to know each other and saved ourselves from getting to know each other until these episodes began. And so in the beginning, we're a little bit more thought and slower talk. And, in the first few episodes, we are in a groove now. The stories are going to get greater. I'm, starting to talk about as an adult and from some of the things that I learned and some of the dumb ass mistakes that I made in that young adulthood.
Yes.
And places I found myself into, but the stories are getting much more fluid between us. We're really in a groove, and tune in. It's gonna be greater and greater.
Also, all of it is unscripted. You're hearing these things raw.
Right.
There's no script. We are just talking, having a conversation back and forth, and it's real, it's raw, it's authentic. And like JD said, you're getting to know us at the same time that we are getting to know each other.
Our planning is 2 minutes before the episode. What do you want to talk about today? This time in life?
Right.
Kory's like, I want to talk about MLK today. Okay, let's talk about MLK. Like, that is our planning so that we are as authentic as possible in getting to know each other.
And I love that. And you will get to know them. Even Kory was talking about his first time, y'all. Y'all need to go.
I ain't have my coffee yet, man.
That one took me out. And for you guys that have not procured yourself a copy of Race for What, I know it's on all platforms, right? They can get on Amazon.
Yeah. Audio and written.
Perfect. Go get that copy. It'll change your life. And I'm urging all non-melanated individuals to go get your copy of that book and let's talk about it.
Yes.
So once again, guys, thank you for tuning in here to VPR. We really appreciate you. Meta Copyright, Augustin. I know you're way out there watching us in Argentina. We appreciate you. You've been sticking with us throughout all the seasons that we've had here. So thank you, Kory May, JD Mass. It was our pleasure bringing you up here 2024, our first interview
Always
of the year.
a pleasure.
Yeah.
Always.
Before we go, can I just say congratulations on you guys for your 3-month anniversary, right?
Thank
Working together on Same Difference and partner. We have a 6-year anniversary coming up this month.
It feels like 3 months like them. I swear. It goes right by. JD, I promise you it will fly by.
Yeah.
So it's lit. We're gonna keep it going, man, and we
Yeah.
appreciate you guys so much and everything.
You guys' interviews are just incredible, so I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I learn a lot. So thank you for that.
And you bring out transparency in people and give them a place where they can feel comfortable, not caring about what they're going to be judged like next. It's a beautiful thing. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
JD. Kory May, it was our pleasure having you here, man. And we look forward to seeing you guys back in the future.
Yeah.
Stay blessed.
See you guys next week, guys. So go and have a great day and be intentional and purposeful and be great. Do it with love.
All right.
Thank you.